we're backing the entrepreneurial economy. So we're backing people who want to grow their business fast. Not Google fast, but fast. Looking to create jobs in the UK, grow sales, do all the good things that drive the UK economy.
I'm Alex Epstein, and this is Field Service Stories. Today, we're talking about business funding, how to raise private equity investment for your field service business. And we're proud to welcome Jamie Roberts, Chief Investment Officer from YFM. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So we're going to talk about a topic that is very important to our clients and prospective clients, and that is the notion of raising investment, sometimes for founders making an exit. And really, we're going to talk about the sort of issues surrounding that and where companies like YFM can fit into that business journey. So first of all, could you give us an introduction to YFM and the types of businesses that you specialize in?
Of course. So YFM is a private equity fund management business founded in 1982 in Leeds. So YFM, it used to be called Yorkshire Fund Managers. So we started locally, and then over the course of those 42 years, we've expanded to offices in Manchester, Birmingham, Reading, and London. So full UK coverage now. We're managing about £740 million, and we're invested in 54 companies across the UK, all smaller, more entrepreneurially run businesses. Two types. So half of our money gets invested into faster growing businesses where we're putting money into the business to go faster. And then the other half of our business is going through some sort of ownership change. Either the management team buying out the founder, we do quite a lot of that, or it's a founder saying, I've gone on a great journey, I've created a load of value, I'd like to de-risk myself and take a third to half of my money off the table. Today, I'll sell half of my business to YFM, and then we'll go on the journey for another 5+ years to create more value. Completely sector agnostic, so we invest in all sorts of businesses. We've got a lot of field service businesses, which is why I guess we're here today. Quite a lot of them use Big Change as well. And then we've got a lot of tech businesses, we've got some retail, so a whole spectrum, very much focused on backing entrepreneurs with a good growth story in an interesting market.
What makes private equity different from other sources of funding? Because we hear the word private equity. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. So I guess when we think of private equity, we think of the horror stories. I think most people will think of what they've read in the newspapers around big high street brands that have been bought and sold by private equity. They think of Masters of the Universe, they think of city types, they think of billions of pounds. That is part of private equity. That's not the bit we do. So we're very much in sort of industry lingo would be lower mid-market. So very much the first sort of professionally managed money that comes into a business. So we're not using a lot of debt. What does private equity mean versus other funding sources? So we've raised money from other people, institutions who give us their money, and they're saying to us, we'd like you to invest that money over a period of 10 years, then we'd like you to give us back more. What that means to the business is we're investing in a business, and we're fully aligned with the management team, that we make our money when they make their money at the end. If you take bank funding, so you take bank debt, is a bit different because they want their money along the way, and they're going to have their money back first. There's all sorts of other funding, angel funding, that's probably a bit more like private equity. The way I think about what we do as private equity is we're aligning ourselves with the management team. We make money when they make money.
I've also heard YFM use the term patient capital as opposed to sort of impatient capital. So what does that mean when you talk about patient capital?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because in some, it's got positive and negative connotation. So the negative connotation for patient capital is, in my head, is lazy capital. So we're not lazy capital. But we are patient capital. So we're not in a hurry. We're not trying to flip a business in a year or two. Our average hold is 4.5, 5 years from being invested to an exit. We were invested in a retail business called Go Outdoors. So very, very big, I know it, UK success story. We invested in that business when they had a couple of stores, and we eventually exited at 100 million turnover. It'd been a great journey for us, and I think we'd been invested for 14, 15 years. So very, very happy when a business is growing to stay invested if we can see a good return for our investors by being involved longer. So that's what we mean by being patient, is we're not looking for a 2 to 3 year flip, but we are very active. So we support our portfolio companies quite a lot. One of us will join the board, not operationally, so we're quite strategic in how we behave, but we want to bring the experience we've got from all the investments we've made, the portfolio we've got, bring that experience to help management teams deliver greater results.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. You've got a great track record of supporting British SMEs.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a backable management team? So when you meet a potential business, what are you looking for in a great fit, particularly from a management team point of view?
Yeah, so it's fascinating. So there's no private equity fund has a playbook. We all have things that we have sort of broad guidelines, tracks that we're working towards. So if you were to look across our portfolio, the management teams are all going to look really different. So they're going to look different in makeup, age, experience, what they've done before, what their plan is, how long they want to be invested, what they're trying to do. The one common theme is they're trying to grow their business in a good way. So we're quite focused on, YFM's been around for 42 years. This all sounds a bit twee, but we're custodians of the business for the next generation coming up behind us. So we were lucky enough to have the people who are ahead of us have built the business in a great way. We've started taking more and more influence in those decisions, and our job is to make good decisions so the next generation can come behind us. And we do that by doing things the right way and backing people who are going to do it the right way. People who want to create value by building a great business.
What's interesting about Big Change is our clients come from all walks of life. And what is exciting for me, I interview many of our clients. Some have grown large multi-million-pound businesses, and they started life as a plumbing apprentice, as a drainage technician. They've worked their way up in a business. They've then gone out alone, and they've created something from nothing. And for me, that's why the businesses you invest in and our clients, it's a really exciting space, and it's very dynamic.
So one of our very, very successful investments that we've recently has been bought by another private equity fund, RGE, which is a Big Change client, obviously went very, very well. Founded by the founder, Roger. Roger had brought in a young guy, Scott, who was on the tools. So Scott was an engineer driving a van. Roger saw the potential. Scott had proved himself over the years, worked his way up through the business to the point where he was running it day to day when we met Roger, and Roger was saying, I'm looking at retiring. I don't want to sell my whole business. I want to sell part of my business. I want to de-risk a bit. I want to give Scott the legs to really run the business. Scott was 28 when we met him. I'm not sure. I think he joined the business at 16. So his whole life experience, professional experience, was within RGE. And he self-taught, taught by Roger, super bright guy, and has done a tremendous job for us and grown that business exponentially. Probably not your typical private equity master of the universe CEO, and he would not want to be that. But so we have the Scots, we have in some of the tech businesses we back, we have very young founders, but we do also have the more classic MBA trained big company execs who have come out to smaller businesses or bought their division out of a big company. So it's that full range of experience. It always comes back to the same thing for us. Are they good people trying to create value by doing good things? What people might now call ESG. So ESG, DE&I, and all that stuff that's really important. We've been doing that for a long time. We just didn't label it that. We just talked about building a great business. And we think we're pretty good at when we meet a management team and we spend time getting to know them, are they trying to grow this business in a way that we'd be proud to get to the end of the journey and say, do you know what, we're proud to have been associated with that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm a field service founder. I'm working night and day to grow my field service business. I probably have limited opportunities, to learn about the funding landscape. How do I get myself on your radar early days so that when the time comes, we've already had some productive discussions?
Yeah. So one of the there's hundreds of private equity firms in the UK, all doing very similar things to us. So I'm pretty sure anybody that's got a business of any size is being tapped up all the time by accountants, corporate finance advisors, business brokers, people like us directly reaching out and saying, we'd love to invest in, we like the space you're in, we'd love to get to know you. I think that creates a huge amount of noise for owners who are busy running their businesses. So if it was me, I'd ask my mates, I'd ask people that I trust, and I would say, I'm thinking about going on this journey. I'm whatever today, my business is making X. By the time it makes Y, I want to de-risk a bit, or I want to sell my whole business, I want to sell this management team. How do I work my way to people that I can trust to help me do that? And I do that by networking. Obviously, we're very happy for people to just approach us directly on the website. And then come on the website, you can find us on LinkedIn, come and talk to you guys. I'm sure we'd be happy to introduce us. But I'm always slightly surprised that founders and people who run businesses don't do as much referencing to find people like us. We do get introduced quite cold to people, and I'm not sure people do reference enough advisors, corporate finance advisors, lawyers, accountants. I think they meet somebody that they think's okay and they trust them. So I would encourage any founder to network their way around. Every time we do a transaction, of course, we go and brag about it on the way in. When we're investing, we're super proud of doing that. And then we go on the journey, we're bragging about that. When we exit at the end, we brag about that as well. So people should be able to find lots of case studies of businesses that look and feel like theirs and have gone on a journey that they want to go on. If it was me, I'd ring the founder or the CEO of that business and say, who should I be talking to? Did the people who back you, were they good guys and girls? Are they people that you'd recommend to go on the journey with?
So you've just talked about the importance of gaining trust on both sides and this idea of going on a journey. And I'm guessing for a lot of founders and management teams, the notion of taking investment and losing some of the control within their business is quite a frightening prospect.
Yep.
So from a hands-on point of view, how do you help make management teams even better during that journey? How do you how do you fill in the missing pieces of their management jigsaw so that they can grow faster and achieve what they want to achieve?
Yeah. So that's what I'd be. If I was a founder, that's the absolute thing that would keep me awake at night. Is if I'm selling all of my business, most people who do sell their businesses do really care still. They want to know that the next owners of the business are going to look after their legacy. We were talking before we started recording about founders are a certain breed, live and breathe, their businesses are another child. So even those people selling their business 100% are still, most of them still worried about what it's going to look like on the other side. For people who are going to carry on and go on the journey, I think we shouldn't overestimate what private equity can do and does do. So YFM specifically aren't going to come in and run the business. Nobody at YFM is going to be operational. We can't tell management teams how to do more jobs or be more efficient in how they're doing their activity. What we can do is create a framework that helps them think more strategically. So 10 board meetings a year, 2 strategy days a year, really sort of get everybody getting their head up at least once a month and thinking about what's our 3 to 5 year journey. Are the things we're really worried about? Are they the things they're going to create value, or are we worrying about stuff that really we should be passing down the chain to other people within the organization? And that for me is the thing private equity should focus on doing. For YFM specifically, we go a bit deeper than that. So we've got a head of talent Jade, who helps businesses recruit other C-level, so the boardroom. So Jade will work with teams. If a team says, look, I need to go and recruit a really great CFO, probably not had one before, Jade can go in and help them run that process. She's not a recruiter. She will help them find the right recruiters and help them make sure they get a great person. We have Michael, who's RevOps. So RevOps is a new thing, which probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of your listeners, but Michael will go in and help businesses get through their data and understand what the data is telling them about their sales pipeline, margin. Are they pricing what they're doing properly, do all that data crunching that most founders of a size do intuitively. Our experience is if you give a smaller business somebody like a Michael who'll just go away and crunch a load of data, he's not going to come back and tell you what to do, but he's going to give you some insights into, did you realize actually over here it's priced like this and over here it's priced like this? If you can get that price there, why can't you get that price there? So it's those sorts of insights that I think we can bring management teams.
So from what you've said there, Jamie, it sounds like you can help businesses become smarter with the way they use data.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we can do is helping people get the data into a position they can interrogate it, introduce good software that helps them do that. Be surprised how many businesses we meet that are still using Excel. The biggest competitor, in my view, to most software in the world is Excel, and Excel is actually really good. I've seen pretty big businesses being run on Excel. It's just you can't interrogate a lot of the data easily on the other side. The one thing I would say is sometimes we actually don't need to do anything to support those businesses. So a lot of the businesses we meet are already brilliant and are already really well set up to go on a great journey over the next 3 to 5 years. And part of our job is recognizing that we can get in the way. So we still want to go to the board meetings, we're still going to do the strategy days, but we're not going to be sat there trying to force stuff in if we don't think the business needs it.
Right, yeah, absolutely makes sense. So you've invested in various big change clients, for example, London drainage facilities.
Yes.
Are there any success stories within the field service space in general that you could perhaps talk about where you've worked with the founder, you've added value, and you've made this sort of tangible impact on the business?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So I'll give you two examples. So we've got RGE, super proud. We invested 3 years later, I think it was. We've exited our investment. Roger, the founder who rolled over a bit, he reinvested with us. He's fully exited, and Scott, who was the MD, he decided he didn't want to carry on as MD, so he's left the business now as well, albeit invested a bit in. So it's a great journey for us. The business multiple times bigger, significantly more employees. I think we went from 40 to 150 employees. So that super growth. What did we do? Really, what did YFM do as part of that? One, we identified that Scott was really good. While Scott didn't obviously look and sound or perhaps want, when we first met him, to go, I want to be the CEO of this business and go on this great private equity journey, we thought, actually, he seems like a really good guy who knows what he's doing. Let's spend a load of time getting to know each other, which we did. And we decided we could back him. It's probably the most important thing we did was that. We helped recruit a finance director. The business needed a really good finance director. We recruited a chair, Stuart Black, who good friends with Stuart, so I can say this, but slightly older, slightly more experienced, had been in lots of field services business. So Stuart was there. Stuart worked with Scott to build that strategy. Lots of little things, I guess, we probably tweaked around the sides, but fundamentally we backed a great business being run by a great person, and we supported him to invest and bring more people in around him as that business grew exponentially. LDF, London Drainage, that we talked about. So Danny and Lucy Fuller, the founders, great people, built an already great business. Probably had over-invested in the business for the size. So they built a lot of great infrastructure, proper layers, proper management structure. We helped them recruit an FD. So they had a good finance function. Lucy led the finance function, but to deliver not the scale they're at today, but the ambition, we recognize they need an FD. So we brought an FD in, Barry, really good guy. The other thing we've done with them, but again, this wasn't us, this was them telling us, was how do we move the balance of revenue from spot project work to more contracted maintenance work? The holy grail, isn't it? Can I go from reacting to the phone ringing to actually having recurring revenue? So they knew they wanted to do that. We agreed with them. So again, can I say that that's what we've done? I don't think we have. I think we provided the right environment to have the conversation, to give them more confidence to do that. And frankly, with Danny and Lucy, the transaction was they owned 100% of the business. They de-risked a little bit. So they took some money off the table, de-risked their life, school fees, mortgage, all that good stuff, which has given them more confidence to be ambitious. They're not betting the whole family farm anymore. So I would just always be skeptical of any private equity investor who's going to come in and tell you they're going to really revolutionize what you're doing. I think great private equity investors create the environment to give management teams more time and more structure to do what they know they probably need to be doing anyway.
So when we attract talent here at Big Change, we believe in people with a growth mindset. And Richard Worley, our CEO, talks about that all the time. And it's a really important part of who we are and the way that we operate. And there's a saying we refer to in life that if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask how that resonates with you, because you meet lots of founders, lots of management teams. How important is the mindset in achieving those big, audacious visions?
I was recently described as a toxic optimist. So, I am, and I'm proud of being a toxic optimist. Partly, I think you can solve most things with energy and smart people. So, if we were to meet a management team who didn't show evidence of those sorts of behaviours, that's probably quite hard for us. We want to meet people who have ambition and have realistic goals as to what they want to achieve. We struggle a little bit if we meet a management team the business has been growing 20-30% a year for the last 5 years, and then they say, and then we're going to do this private equity transaction, and it's going to go 300% a year for the next 10 years, and it's going to be worth 10 billion. You know, we might question some credibility stuff on that. So it is that balance between realistic optimism, and I think that's where the phrase toxic optimist comes from me. Some of my colleagues find it a bit hard because they sort of sit there and go, oh, you know, I know you say we can do this, but you can't just do it through brute force. But I personally am a believer in you can do most things if you really put your mind to it and you really are prepared to try and take the risk. Talking about what private equity bring, we have a portfolio of 50 plus investments. So for us, we're often the bravest in the room because we've got a big portfolio, we've got portfolio theory. We're the ones who can see the benefit of taking perhaps that extra risk and also saying we're investing in the business today. We're not looking for a return for 3, 5, 7 years. So we can get some stuff wrong. Because the one thing we promise all management teams, we're going to write this beautiful strategy 5-year plan, we're going to have a 3-year plan, we're going to have a 12-month plan, we're going to have a model, it's going to be amazing. The only guarantee is that's not what's going to happen. So that's the only promise. But if we start off that this is the goal we're going to try and achieve, we'll be aligned as we try and fail. And I think our job is to encourage people to try and then recognize when you fail and then pick yourselves up and get on and try the next one. So yeah, long-winded way of saying I absolutely agree that if you're in the C-suite of it, if you're leading a business, I think you probably have got to be quite optimistic and quite positive about I can deliver this growth.
So you mentioned about the 5-year plan. And what's fascinating in the world right now is that the speed of change with technology is just crazy now.
Yep.
The pace of change, there's new technologies coming out all the time, add AI into the mix, particularly in the sectors that Big Change serves, the field service sectors. How important is technology in giving those businesses an advantage? And what's going to happen to the businesses that are the laggards, who are the last to adopt new technologies?
And again, something we were talking about off camera, weren't we, where we were saying most field services businesses today are as much about the technology stack and how they're thinking about their business and the data they're using. But we shouldn't forget that the person receiving the service at the end, that the customer, doesn't care what software you've got, what data you've got. They care about the service they're getting. So one of the attractions for us, and I remember when we first met Danny and Lucy at London Drainage, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but they have a system where each engineer hands out a card, physical paper card at the end and says, we'd love it if you could give us some feedback. And I think the engineer gets incentivized to get as much feedback as they can. And then Danny, we were leaving to go for lunch, and Danny showed us the inbox where that feedback comes in, and it was just pages and pages and pages of people sending nice comments. So that, I agree on all the data stuff, but if you don't get your people right, so you do need well-trained people to deliver the service. At a strategic level, you need the data and the software. You need the data, and to get the data, you need the software. So I do think, we touched on it earlier, didn't we, that Excel is, you can run big businesses on Excel. I think you could probably run them better if you use some of the packages that are out there to help you interrogate that data better. AI is an interesting one. The amount of AI-enabled solutions that we're seeing at the minute, and lots of businesses coming in and talking to us about how AI is going to revolutionize an industry. I'm sure it is. I think there's a long way to go before we really start to see that in a meaningful way. Our test, test's the wrong word phrase, the way we think about it, we meet management teams and we say to them, how do you think AI is going to impact what you do? The ones who tell us for sure they know, probably a bit worried about those. The ones who tell us that it's not, probably a bit worried about those. The ones who say it probably is, I don't know what it's going to do, and I don't know how it's going to do it. We've sort of messed around with it a little bit. We're sort of playing around with it, but we're not doing anything particularly serious with it at the minute. Or maybe we're using this AI-enabled bit of some software that we already had. They're the people we want to back. The people that recognise that change comes.
But I'm guessing if you're talking to a business that isn't fully digitalised yet, perhaps you're thinking that with the right technology, you know what I mean, they could go really fast or faster than they're going already.
Yes, 9 times out of 10. So there are industries which are just older fashioned. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that one of the things we're really mindful of is not breaking anything. So you can meet a great business, been around for 20 years. If you then think, do you know what, I'm going to overlay this brilliant technology and it's going to revolutionize the world, there's a chance the reason it's not done any of that for 20 years is because there was some other secret sauce within that business that didn't need it. We have one of the first investments I ever made, actually quite a long time ago. It's still in the portfolio. It went very, very well for us, but got quite heavily impacted by COVID, so we're sort of reset phase. We were really keen for them to put a great CRM in. They had a CRM in, but it wasn't great, and the CEO knew he needed a new CRM. 6 years later, I still don't think we could really point to an ROI from that new CRM because it didn't actually need it. It looks better, but is it driving more? Is it driving more revenue and better pricing? I'm not sure it is. So yeah, I agree. 9 times out of 10, all businesses could invest more in technology and probably get a better outcome. But I wouldn't bring a mindset that says it's got to be that in everything.
Sure. So it's not technology for technology's sake. There's got to be a real business case to implement it, and that is the case for our clients for sure.
And a culture of wanting it as well. So, in some industries, maybe the field service industries, there are some people at the point of service that aren't going to easily take to. There are industries that just have an older workforce that perhaps aren't going to take quite as quickly to technology. So thinking about how that gets implemented and how that gets rolled out across the business is just as important as thinking about the bang for the buck of rolling it out. I think it's really dangerous for private equity people and non-execs and C-suite people so the people at the board, to get excited about the benefit that's coming from a piece of technology that they personally haven't got to implement. So us saying, God, if you got this would be amazing, to a CEO who's already very frazzled running the business and just knows that that's going to be too big a project, then you've got to take that into account when you're thinking about tech implementations.
Right, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I read widely in the business press. I've read about large private equity sort of transactions. Asda is one. There's many that I've read about, and I also understand that in the last few years, the economic situation, has been a little bit precarious. And when I've read around those big transactions like Asda and those sorts of, deals, There was an era of cheap capital when interest rates were very low. Some private equity firms, deals were structured in that they relied a lot on raising debt. And now we're in a position where there's higher interest rates. What does that mean for the ability of businesses to get investment and raise money in this world of higher interest rates?
Yeah. So don't let me forget the question, but I want to touch on something here. So we did a report last year, which we touched on, called The Entrepreneur's Economy, where we interviewed hundreds of entrepreneurs around the UK and got some soundings, which we shared publicly. It's on our website. We've got some good media coverage. And one of the things we found is entrepreneurs are much more positive about life than non-entrepreneurs. And we did a piece for the Times, actually. So we talked to the Times about the negativity around business in the UK is really, really toxic. So we all know generally the press in the UK likes to build stuff up, knock it down. There's a very high profile entrepreneur at the minute that's gone on a great journey, and suddenly the media's turned against him. So they're beating him up a bit in the press. Well, nothing's changed about the story. They're just beating him up. That's really frustrating for entrepreneurs. That stops entrepreneurship. So the piece with the Times was around saying, actually, media, you have a responsibility to not just talk about the negative. So when you reference Asda, and I'm not calling you out for this, but it was kind of in a negative context of, or Asda's been through this big deal and the headlines are the debt's this and this is this is the other. I know that actually it's going quite well. So is it going as well as everybody hoped it was going to go? Probably not. I'm not in the weeds, but I know that at a strategic level, they're delivering a lot of the things that they wanted to deliver. If you go back to what we said earlier, the plan is always going to look like this and the journey is going to look like this. That everybody is very, very confident that's going to be a great success. But that's a boring story. It's much more fun to talk about the entrepreneurial brothers and what they're doing in their personal life and the interest rate and this, that, and the other. And I just don't think that's good for UK PLC.
I completely agree with you. So you're absolutely right, Jamie. I've read that same story enough times that
it gets in our head.
It's naturally got. It's in my head now, and when I think about private equity, that's a story now that just came. A question that came to mind very easily.
Yeah.
So no, I completely agree. The media need to be positive and not use people as a punching bag. Yeah. Just going back to the interest rate.
Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So does that have an effect on the availability of capital to be invested in businesses?
It does. So it absolutely does. Does it in more traditional businesses like your market? Not massively. So it does in the tech world because interest rates were so low for so long. Big investors, not us, people worrying about billions of pounds and which country they invest in and what strategy they're backing. And we back smaller businesses in the UK growing. Those guys and girls globally had to find return, and they did that because everybody got excited about tech. So from 2009-10, when interest rates pretty much got to zero, that money's been searching globally for return, and it landed in tech, which is why we had this massive bubble. We then had COVID, which changed how everybody works and thinks, and remoteness, which accentuated that bubble even more, and that money became really cheap. So lots of transactions happened at really inflated values because there was loads of money chasing those transactions. So without doubt, there was more money for businesses in 2022 than there is in 2024, and that meant the money was cheaper. The reality is interest rates since 2009 have been wrong. So for the last 15 years, money's been too cheap. And if you look back over time, interest rates should, in my view, be low single digit, 2 to 4% is a good cost of money when you think about inflation at 2 to 3% a year. So I think about the last 15 years as being the blip, and that was a great time for people who raised loads of capital and did some amazing things. And there's a bit of a cold. People have caught a bit of a cold, which is working its way through the economy, and it absolutely will. If I was an owner of a business, a founder of a business, management team running a business, if you've got a great business, or even a sort of great business, you're going to find capital. There's huge amounts of private equity capital. There's huge amounts of debt capital, not so much from the traditional high street banks, that market's changed. Loads of debt funds out there would love to give you money if you've got a great business, and the same with private equity. The price might be a little bit different, but it's not materially different. The value of a field service. Think about this in a way without sharing too much information. So on some of the transactions we've done in the field service market, the value of those businesses isn't different because of the economic climate. The value of those businesses is greater because they are much bigger businesses doing bigger things and achieving more. I think if you get to the Asda scale, the Google, Meta, all those big guys that take up all the news, yeah, maybe they're impacted by it, but not our end.
So at YFM, you specialise in SMEs, and typically you invest between £2 and £10 million.
So 2 to 15 is really our sweet spot. So what that really means is on the way in, we can invest 2 or 12, 13, because there's a lot of businesses on the journey need more money, and it might be because they want to go faster. It might be because a shareholder on the journey decides they want to get off the bus and go do something else. It might be because we want to go and acquire a competitor. So we have a business called GHG, which is a loss adjusting business, sort of in your market, but I don't think it's not quite in your market because of what it does. But they've acquired 2 or 3 businesses. We've invested a couple of times from the original investment we've done. An SME is a really interesting one. So again, come back to our entrepreneurs report. We're not sure SME is the right phrase, because SME covers anything that's not big. So that covers a self-employed contractor. It covers a lifestyle business. Nothing wrong with any of the, I'm not negative about any of these. It covers the kebab shop. It covers the car detailing business. It covers the car wash business, which are all great businesses. That's really different to an entrepreneur who's employing 50, 60, 70 people with an ambition to recruit another 50, 60, 70 people. We talked about the journey of big change, and you had your office here in a broom cupboard, and it was here, and it was here, it was here. That's not just an SME. How can you bucket that with a lifestyle business of a one-man band IT contractor? So we think about we're backing the entrepreneurial economy. So we're backing people who want to grow their business fast, not Google fast, but fast, looking to create jobs in the UK, grow sales, do all the good things that drive the UK economy.
So the term SME, it's not a useful descriptor. It's not a helpful descriptor, really.
It's the one everyone knows, right? So it is the only one, isn't it? And we can keep banging on in our tiny little corner of the world about let's talk about the entrepreneur's economy. But so we do back SMEs on that matrix of SME, medium, large, mega cap. But we like to think of it as more of the entrepreneur's economy. And interesting, when we published the report, one of the pieces of feedback we got, so we did the report, I think we interviewed 550 entrepreneurs across the UK. The feedback we got when it went out, and we got a load of stuff, people were approaching us saying, nobody talks for entrepreneurs. Who represents entrepreneurs in the UK? So there's lots of federations focused on small businesses, but and then there's London Stock Exchange for mid and bigger businesses. But who talks for the entrepreneurs the founder of Big Change? Who talks for him? Where's his trade body? Who's the person in Parliament saying, stop doing these bonkers things because it's really hurting people who are trying to grow their businesses fast?
So if you want to read a copy of YFM's Entrepreneur Economy Report, we'll put a link to that so you can read that. A final question for you, Jamie. We've talked about the way you go on a multi-year journey with the companies that you invest in. It's got to be the right fit. There's a whole choice of PE firms out there. If I'm a field service operator, a CEO, a managing director, what are the questions I should be asking? What are the questions I should be asking potential private equity firms when I start to think about when I start to seriously consider this? What are the questions that they should ask you or ask the different firms to start to whittle down or sift down to, a final list of potential fits?
Yeah. So for me, what's the best way to think? So for me, it's all about how much have you done that looks like what we want to do. So not necessarily the exact same business, because it's unlikely. So no, some private equity funds, we definitely wouldn't. We wouldn't invest in two businesses doing the same thing, because it just creates friction. So saying this is the journey as a management team we want to go on. Private equity person, give me examples where you've been on that journey with a business. And that could be similar sector. So for us, when we were talking to Danny and Lucy, or Brad and Nick, who were the owners of SOS, and Jamie, who we backed as the MD, obviously we were using, look at this great journey we've been on with RGE. Doesn't that look a bit similar to what you're doing here? So that helps. It's really important. But the journey can also be expansion, international expansion, moving into new product areas, investing in technology, buying a new factory or something. So I'd focus on that. But more importantly, it's the cultural fit. So YFM, we've been on a big growth journey over the last 4 or 5 years of people. So we built one of the newer, younger people in the business, created this thing called a culture book, which talked about YFM as a business, which was sort of just pictures of us doing fun things and getting drunk and just doing silly things to make us not look like boring private equity people. We started sharing that with management teams to sort of say, look, we're real people too. So I've got a shirt on today, of course I have, but I don't wear a shirt every day, right? I'm not a city person, I've got jeans on. We want to show management teams we're like them. And for me, if I was a team, I'd want to understand the people I'm going on this journey with for 5 years. Do I like them? Are they a bit like me? Do I want these people in my business? Do I want them around the table? Do I want to celebrate successes and commiserate losses with them? And that second bit, loads of people do the first bit. Not many people do the second bit. When we first met Danny and Lucy at LDF, we did the tour of the business. We met everybody. It's really important for them to see how we interacted with the entire business. And then we went back to their house. And it was sometimes that doesn't happen that often. And I've never asked them the question, but I think that was because they wanted to get a feel for us as people.
Yeah.
And that would be the thing for me. And then referencing, make sure you talk to portfolio companies. So our portfolio, every business we are invested in is on our website. Most private equity firms do the same thing. If I'm a founder talking to a private equity house or an owner, pick a company on that website and ring them directly. Don't ask for an intro from the private equity house. Just ring them directly and ask to speak to the CEO. And most of the time, they're going to be happy to talk to you and say, what does it feel like to work with X, Y, Z? Get the warts and all.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I really like the way you've put that. Do I want to meet these people in a board meeting, month after month over a 7-year period? Yeah. If you didn't get on with them in that first meeting, you may not get on with them sort of long term. So there really has to be a good fit and a chemistry almost with these people. They are your business partners for the future.
So we have a rule at YFM with it. So we've got, so YFM is 42 years old, but it's been on a big growth spurt for the last 5 or 6 years as we move to the next stage of our growth. We've got a lot of younger people into the business who sort of new to private equity or second job in private equity. And one of the rules we have when we meet a management team, anyone can say, I don't want to do it. So from the most senior person in the room to the most junior person in the room, if they meet a management team and we come out and somebody says, they just gave me the ick, we're not going to do it. Life's too short. And I think I'd like management teams to do that a bit more and sort of say, actually, they just gave me the ick. I don't want to spend 5 years working for that team.
Yeah, that makes absolute perfect sense. Well, Jamie, I want to thank you for joining us today. We are excited to see the future investments that you make within our space. And of course, I hope today's session provided value for our clients and prospective clients on how they can go about, their future investment journey. So huge thank you to you, and come and join us again here very soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jamie.